Alright, in this vlog, I want to talk about a few different things. The first of which is whether or not I believe that paranormal events or experiences, whether or not they're hereditary. According to certain people, they believe that it skips generations and that it is inherited. In my instance, I asked around in my family. I haven't gotten around to everybody, but I just happened to be talking to my dad the other day, and I asked him if he had ever, actually it started off, I asked him if he'd ever seen anything strange in the sky, because out of my family, if anyone were to notice, it'd be him, because he pays a lot of attention to, the sky, because he's very interested in outer space and science and things of that nature. So out of, especially my immediate family, him and I are most interested in that kind of thing. So he said that he has never seen anything like out of the ordinary, and then asked if I had seen anything. So I told him about my experience with the whole glowing object in the sky, which is a UFO, but, as I explained in another video, UFO does not necessarily mean a craft. They're actually usually referring it, they've changed the name, basically, in the paranormal field. A lot of them have, from UFO to, it's UAO, was unidentified aerial object or something like that, because of that misconception. But what I saw was not a craft, it was a light. It could have been a craft, but from my standpoint, all I saw was a bright light. Anyway, I told him about the experience, and that kind of segued into, because I told him, there's a lot of what I've said, and some things I haven't even gotten into yet, which I'll get into by the end of this video. A lot of them sound very hard to believe, and I understand that, especially if you're a non-experiencer. Some of the things that I talk about seem very outlandish, and if you don't know me, there's no reason to necessarily believe me. However, I can only tell you that everything that I've told you that I've experienced. I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily know the reasons behind it, what triggered it, etc. But it is what I've experienced. I'm telling the truth. Whether you believe it or not, that's your decision. But I'm a very honest person. Actually, usually honest to a fault, and it gets me into a lot of trouble. But, I really see no reason in lying. It's just useless. So, I just ask that you have an open mind. You don't necessarily have to believe in the things that I talk about, but hopefully if you're here, you are at least open to, hearing other people's experiences and, the likelihood that it could be possible for these things to happen. But anyway, as I'm explaining it to him and talking about how this object seemed to respond to my thoughts, it sounds crazy, it really does. And even looking back on certain things that have happened to me, it does sound crazy. If I didn't have substantial or substantiated proof of some of the things that I've experienced, of course I don't have proof of everything, but there's been instances where other people have experienced the same thing with me. My friend, as I mentioned before, she actually caught something on film in the house that we both experienced a lot of activity at. So there is some evidence to back up things that I've experienced, which leads me to basically believe that I'm not crazy, and these things aren't hallucinations or whatever you want to call it. But as I'm explaining it to him, it just, I don't know, I get uncomfortable, because unless I know the person's very open-minded, or better yet, a fellow experiencer, it's really hard for me to talk about this kind of thing, because you don't want the other person to think that you're nuts. Because I've had people open up about things that they've seen, and honestly, I didn't know them to the point where I didn't know them well enough to know whether or not they were full of it or not. Also, I didn't really know about their mental state, because the one person in particular, she was kind of a little on the weird side, but you know, I always try to keep an open mind, and while I'm not like 100% like, oh, she for sure saw this, you know, I'm open to it, that she might have seen it, and she claims that her son was with her when she saw it, so I don't know her son, but that would be one person that could possibly corroborate what she saw. But anyway, the point of all that was he kind of noticed, I guess, that I was feeling awkward about talking about it, and he's like, you know, even though I've never really put too much stock into, you know, your ghost experiences and whatnot, you know, it doesn't mean that I don't believe in UFOs or things like that. And, you know, I had mentioned in other videos as well that my dad never really bought into, you know, the things that I've seen, and at a certain point I pretty much stopped telling him about it. But I guess what his issue with the whole ghost phenomena is he was coming from a standpoint where he thought that I thought these, you know, these entities, whatever you want to call them, were dead people, when in actuality, as I've been doing more research and, you know, looking at other people's experiences and whatnot, I'm not entirely sure that that's what they are. Again, I don't know, there's really no way to know for sure what these things are, but pretty much all of the entities that I've seen do not interact with me. Like, it's pretty much like I'm not there. There was a couple that seemed to be aware of my presence, but for the most part, they just kind of were there. And that is more of like a residual type haunting. And in my opinion, I think that they're caused by certain like materials, like rocks, certain minerals and whatnot have the ability to record things. I mean, that's how you're able to record things onto a video cassette tape. You know, they're made of certain materials that record things. So a lot of times when these residual hauntings are taking place, for whatever reason, there's like a lot of quartz around or under, you know, the house or whatever area. You know, there's certain mineral deposits that can be found nearby. I'm not saying that 100% that's what's happening, but it just seems ironic that these type of things seem to be related. So that could be one explanation, is just it's recording what's already happened, and I don't know why you see it, or why some people see it and why some people don't. I don't really know, but that's one explanation. The other explanation is that there's like a time distortion, I guess would be, where you're actually seeing into the past or future. I mean, there's really not too much of a way to tell whether it's the past or future. In none of these instances where I've seen entities have they spoken to me. They're just there. The only one, there was like 2 instances where the entity, the being, whatever, seemed to be aware of my presence. One was the woman that was in the McGregor house, the naked woman I saw like in the kitchen, like where I had heard high heels. She seemed to be looking at me, not in a menacing way or anything, just, you know, there. And then the other time was at my friend Courtney's house, where the lady was floating above my head. And again, she didn't seem, you know, negative in any way. She was just there. And that was it. All the other times, they're just there. So, I don't know, like, and time is a dimension, or these beings could just be from a different dimension and we're just kind of phasing in and out of it. I don't really know. It's just theories, I guess. But, when I explained it to him that way, where, it could just be, an interdimensional thing, because, we do live in a multiverse, it's pretty much been proven, and, he was completely open to that aspect of it, because, and this is, kind of shocked me, because, I guess we don't really talk about religion too much anymore, and I'm not really sure why, but I did used to go to a Lutheran school, so it's not like I don't have a religious background at all. But for some reason, we've all pretty much kind of steered away from it. It's not like I have any problem with any kind of religion. Whatever you choose to believe in is your prerogative. All that I ask is that you be respectful of my beliefs and the fact that I'm just not religious. I actually seem to be on the same kind of belief that my dad is, which last time I knew, I thought he was Christian, but I guess that's changed. And pretty much we believe that there is a higher power of some sort. I pretty much know that there is. I'm not sure what it is and how it works, but I know that there is a higher power, which I'll get into hopefully by the end of this video. It's kind of getting long, but I know that there's something out there. I don't know that it's necessarily this conscious spirit or creator. I don't know. I'm not going to profess to know. I do believe that beliefs are important. However, I don't think they should be based on nothing. I think it should be based on evidence and logic, and I don't know. That's just my personal beliefs. And of course, not everything can be proven, but I don't know. The more proof, the better, I guess. But anyway, so that's pretty much what he believes in, and I do believe in an afterlife. I don't know for 100% sure that there is one, but I do believe that it exists, merely just because of the way science works, the whole Einstein thing where energy cannot be created or destroyed, it's just moved from one body to the next. So, in that instance, you pretty much don't die, you just move on to something else. What that something else is, I don't know, but that's pretty much a whole nother topic. But that's one of the, probably the worst thing that I think about the most is death and how it works, because I can't contemplate not existing, but on the same, at the same time, I can't really fathom living forever either. So it's just very confusing. And then it's what was life like before we were born? We don't remember what that was. At least, some people claim that they were reincarnated and remember past lives. I personally don't. I do feel certain ties to things, but I don't remember anything specific, and who knows where these supposed feelings or memories are coming from. I don't really know, but I don't remember. I don't have any consciousness of a previous life to this one. So, what did I exist as before this? So if we're pretty much eternal, I don't know. To me, it's okay, as much as it makes sense to be an eternal entity, it makes about equal as much sense that we're not eternal, that pretty much when we die, that's it. So it's to me, there's really no proof either way, where one is more proven than the other. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't know, I just thought it was interesting that we both have pretty much the same view on religion and, I guess, spirituality, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, moving on, I did ask my dad if he's seen anything out of the ordinary, and he said the only thing that he's ever seen is shadow beings, shadow people, and pretty much that is just when the most common kind is the ones that you see out of your peripheral vision. You never see them dead on, they're just kind of in your side view, and he's never seen them dead on. They're always like that, and I don't know how frequent frequently he sees them, but he said he has seen them several times. So I guess that is something. And I've seen a shadow being myself, and I told him about that whole situation. And yeah, I asked my sister if she'd ever experienced anything. She said that, you know, outside of like hearing things moving around, which could be, you know, nerves, you know, being up late at night by yourself, things like that, you know. So I don't know how much that matters or if it makes a difference, but that's the only thing that she's ever experienced. And then my brother, you know, I keep saying, you know, sorry. My brother, I told you about the whole experience that he had seeing that alien being in the greenhouse. He also admitted to hearing stuff moving in the attic. As far as anything else he has experienced, I don't know. I haven't asked him just because he's not very interested in the paranormal. I'm the only person in my family that's really interested in it. My grandma's open-minded to it, but she's not like super interested in it like I am. So it's not really something that comes up all that often. Other things that I wanted to talk about, hopefully somewhat briefly, it's kind of important to talk about, and I don't think I've mentioned at least a couple of these before, just because they might be related to why one group of people experiences things and why another group doesn't, and the symptoms and things that your body does that kind of correlate or can correlate to it. But anyway, I don't know if that made any sense. Out-of-body experiences, a lot of people have this when a lot of people that experience paranormal things, they've experienced OBEs as well. Some in relation to the whole abduction thing, others, you know, for whatever other reason. I personally have never had what I would consider an out-of-body experience. I've never seen myself, you know, below me or anything like that. The closest thing to it, and I don't even think it would be among the same lines, is, and again, this sounds crazy, but I did see into the future one time, like where I actually was like living that event in my head before it actually happened. And I think I've told the story before, but basically I was really upset, and because like a lot of paranormal stuff was happening to me and I had no one to talk to about it, and I felt completely isolated and alone, and you know, school wasn't going well, so I was just like crying, and I was outside. I was at my godmother's house, and I pretty much just like prayed to whatever is there. I was like, you know, if there is something special about me, if I'm psychic, whatever you want to call it, like if you could give me a sign. And right when I thought that, and it's really hard to explain, but it's almost like dreaming, but you can feel everything around you. So I wasn't seeing through like my regular eyes. I guess I would be seeing through what they call the third eye, but I could still feel like the air, you know, moving past me, and it was really, really strange. It's never happened before like this, and never happened again after that. But I walked into my class, you know, my classroom, because I was in school still, and everyone was gathered around this one girl, and as I approached her, she was talking about how her uncle had just passed away, and she was crying about it, and you know, other people were trying to console her and whatnot, and I asked her, you know, if she was okay or something like that, and like the whole thing, like me walking into the room, it was through my eyes, it wasn't third person, so it was like it was actually happening. It was pretty quick, it wasn't anything like out of the ordinary or like profound, I guess you would call it. It was just something that happened in regular life, and then all of a sudden I was, boom, just back to normal, and I thought it was really, really strange, but I didn't put too much stock into it because, I don't know, it didn't mean too much to me at that point. I just thought it was kind of weird. Well, the next day, I walk into class, and pretty much everything as I saw it happened exactly as I had seen it the day before. So that to me not only proves that there is something that can hear us, a higher power of some sort, and the whole psychic thing is possible. As far as like how many people are actually legitimately psychic and how powerful that is, I have no idea. But I know firsthand that I have experienced it. I mean, it is possible to see into the future to some extent. I only saw the next day, so as far as how far out you can, I don't know. How far out your future is predetermined, I don't know. But I mean, the next day isn't that long way. So I don't know. It was just a very weird experience. So I have experienced that. I've also experienced a couple of times of like telepathy or ESP, and I guess the most profound one was with Courtney, and it was just something stupid. Like, we were munching on stuff, and I had thought in my head, I wanted this bag of chips, and as soon as I thought it, she looked at me, nodded, and then handed it to me. It was just really strange. And then the other instance was this girl I used to work with. She heard me call this woman a bitch in my head, but she heard it like in her head. It was just really weird, and it's completely random, and I have no control over when these things happen. They just happen. And then telekinesis, which is the ability to move things with your mind, that has happened a couple times to me as well. Unfortunately, with that, again, it's nothing that you can will to happen, at least in my experience, because I've tried to make it happen before, and it only happens like when I'm really stressed out or my energy is really high, whether it be from stress or like happiness, like excitedness, or excitement, I guess. But I don't know. But pretty much those are some things that I've experienced. If that means anything in relation to the paranormal, if they're related at all, I don't know. But I figured it's somewhat important to talk about, I guess, in case that there is some kind of reference to each other. But anyway, if you have any questions, put them below. Any constructive comments, experiences that you've had, feel free to share.